Hey everybody, Blaine Seitz here, Master Club Fitter and Director of Instruction for the Tour Shot Golf Academy. And today we're at Second Swing in Columbia, Maryland, and we're going to talk about how to fix some common issues caused by too much sitting. Okay, whether you have a long commute to your job, whether you sit at a desk for work all day, or maybe it's even traveling to a golf course, whether that course is maybe an hour away, or if you're going on a big trip where you have to get on an airplane and do a lot of extended travel. There's a lot of harm that can come to our golf swing from excessive sitting. And we're going to learn a couple simple things that we can do to help improve these problems that start to arise. Now, we're going to tackle two different areas of the body that are most affected from excessive sitting. One of them being our hips. If we're sitting, obviously, we're in this bent position with our knee closer to our chest, and it causes our hip flexors in the front of our legs here to really shorten up and cause dysfunction in the lower part of the body. The other part is our upper body, because when we're driving or sitting, we end up slouching and rounding forward, causing our shoulders to collapse inward, putting stress on our upper back. Now, sitting is really deadly because it really affects both of these issues at the same time. We're slouched and we're bent forward, kind of in this fetal position. And so what happens is, and maybe you can relate to this. Let's say you go for a road trip, or you're sitting on an airplane for a while, and you finally stand up, and for a second you're like, oh man, my body doesn't work. And you kind of get it moving and grooving again. That's because all of your muscles are starting to become unbalanced, and we want to rebalance this whole equation. So one of the things that we can do is we can use a foam roller or a mobility ball or something of the sort to help open up our chest. Now what we're going to do here is we're going to roll out the front of our shoulder where the shoulder meets the chest. Okay, this area is usually chronically tight for many people, but we have to learn how to open it up. So using a foam roller, we're going to get down and apply some pressure right here on the inside of this shoulder. Again, it can be a foam roller, it can be a mobility ball. Heck, let's just grab this for example. If you know what you're doing, you could even do it with, say, a kettlebell. The tool is not the important part. The important part is understanding these concepts and being able to work and manipulate these areas that we're trying to. So don't get caught up on, oh, I don't have that piece of equipment. Just listen to what it is we're doing and why we're doing it and how we're doing it, and then the tool can be something that you do extra. And as a bonus, I'll even show you how you can do it with no tools at all. But foam rollers are something that a lot of people have these days, whether you have them at home, whether you have them at your gym. Hotels sometimes have them as well. There's a lot of things you can do. I travel with a mobility ball in my bag. All right, so what are we doing here? So we're applying some pressure to this shoulder. And you'll notice the position that I'm in, I really like. I'm on my basically hands and knees. This gives me a lot of control over my own body weight. Okay, because I don't want to just put a ton of pressure on it, but at the same time I need some pressure on it. So by getting on my hands and knees like this, I can apply a little bit of pressure. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to let our arm be very passive. Okay, my arm is almost just limp, and I'm just going to roll back and forth, maybe a little bit forward and backward, and we're just going to start to explore. By allowing this arm to kind of go passive, it allows the roller to sink in a little bit deeper. Now while we're rolling around, we're going to start to find some sensitive areas, some knots, if you will. Our goal is to relieve those knots, and those knots are essentially a sign that those muscles don't work the way that they're supposed to. They're having trouble being able to contract properly, and we need to wake them back up. So the first thing we do by applying this pressure is to start to kind of increase blood flow and get the surfaces to slide again, but we're also just exploring to find tight spots. So I just found one. It's a little bit sensitive. So our second step is now my body is going to stay still, and I'm going to move just my arm. Okay, so step one, and this is with any kind of foam rolling or soft tissue work like this. Step one, the area we're working with is passive and we move our body. Step 2, our body stops and we move the arm. Okay, and this allows us to create more range of motion in that otherwise restricted area. For this spot that we're working right now, my favorite thing to do is take my hand, sweep it back and high five the ceiling, and then bring it back down, palm to the ground. High five the ceiling, palm to the ground. High five the ceiling, palm to the ground. And then we can roll around again, find a new spot, and repeat that process. Now the third thing that we can do is we're not going to move either our body or the arm. We're simply going to find one of these restricted areas, put some pressure on it, and then get the muscle to squeeze. Okay? Let's see what that looks like. So step 1, arm is limp, rolling around. Step 2, body is still, moving the arm. Step 3, so here's a spot, it's wound up, it's sensitive. I'm going to make a fist. I'm going to squeeze my whole arm. I'm going to put as much pressure into that spot as I can tolerate. Hold it for 3, 2, 1, and then slowly relax all of it. And that's going to allow that restricted area to break up, allow you to go a little bit deeper into this mobility work, and then we repeat. Now we can scrub around, we can find a new spot. We're going to work that spot out, and then we're going to squeeze on it, breathe, and relax. And we repeat. How long you need to do this depends on how stiff and tight you are and how much you're able to change while you're on there. But the general rule of thumb is you always want to work about at least a minute, if not 2 minutes, per any area you're working, whether it's this shoulder, your hips, whatever it is. So if I'm working this shoulder, my goal is 1 to 2 minutes to actually see that change. If you're not seeing that change, you just need more time. And if you're new to this, that's not uncommon at all. So that's our first step. Now I told you I'd give you a little added bonus. So now that we know what to do with the foam roller, the question is, well, what if I don't have a foam roller? And you can do this same or similar technique just using your fingers. Okay, so we can take our fingers and actually push into those restricted areas. Step 1, my arm is going to be passive, and I'm going to just move my fingers around. So I'm applying pressure, and I'm moving them around. Step 2 is I'm going to push, and then I'm going to move my arm. And then step 3, just like before, is I'm going to find a spot and then try to squeeze on it and relax, and squeeze on it and relax. And the key here is through all 3 of these different techniques, you need to breathe. If you find that you're holding your breath, you're doing too much, your body's not ready for it, use that breath to your advantage. The more stiff and tight you are, the more you need to breathe, and the breathing is what triggers the body to actually relax and give in. So that's what we're going to do on our shoulders, whether on the foam roller or using your hands. Now the second piece is we need to address the lower body, because these hip flexors get really, really tight, and it throws off how your body can work and produce power and puts a lot of stress on the lower back. Now I'm going to grab a club here, and this club is basically for balance. And then I also have a couple foam pads. You can use a pillow, you can use a towel that you've rolled up. This is just to protect my knees a little bit, make it a little bit more comfortable. We're going to use a wall. You can also do this in a chair or on a couch. There's a lot of different ways. Again, listen to the concepts behind what it is we're doing. Now I'm going to get on my hands and knees. I'm going to work my right leg. So my right knee is on the foam. My foot is up against the wall. And the first thing is we're just going to hang out here. For some of you, this might be enough. You're going to already start to feel this stretch in the front of your hip. And what we're trying to do is to get this hip. You can see there's a crease between my leg and my body. I'm trying to open that crease to create a straight line, or even to get my hip to go past my body. Now we're squeezing our butt in this position. The more you can squeeze your butt, the more effective this stretch is going to be. So you can hang out here as long as you need to before we move on to step 2. In step 2, we're going to bring our other leg out in front of us. Okay, this is going to intensify this stretch. Again, working the right leg. So a lot of you might be in a position like this, where you see, again, this big bend between my leg and my body. And by squeezing my butt and pushing my hip forward, I'm actually opening the hip. Now this is not to be confused with arching your back. Okay, arching your back does us no good. It's actually going to put a lot of stress on your back and hurt yourself. So the best thing that you can do is squeeze your butt. The more you squeeze your butt, the more effective the stretch becomes, and it protects your lower back. So here, same thing. I'm squeezing my butt. 3, 2, 1. Then I relax and I try to go a little farther. Squeeze. 3, 2, 1. Relax. Try to go a little farther. Squeeze. 3, 2, 1. We can add some difficulty by twisting towards our front leg. We can also reach up and over. But the more important thing here is that we're focusing primarily on the hip. Now, as we go, our goal then becomes to get our chest up. So I like to use a club for support, use my leg for support, but it's the same thing. I don't care how tall your chest gets, okay? This is not doing anything different than here. Why? Because my hip hasn't moved. If you look, my hip did not move. What I'm trying to do is get my hip to go forward. If I can get my hip to go forward and my chest comes up, well, that's just an added bonus. That's exactly what we're trying to do. So again, squeeze your butt. 3, 2, 1. Relax it. Try to get a little bit more extension through that hip. Squeeze. 3, 2, 1. And you continue to repeat, getting your chest higher and higher and higher, getting this hip more and more and more open. And then the last thing that we can do over time is get your leg closer to the wall. The closer your leg is to the wall, the more intensive this stretch becomes. Again, we want about 2 minutes per leg of accumulated time in any given session. You can always do a little bit more, but doing less may not get you those same benefits. So now we have a routine between our shoulders and our hips that in just 10 minutes, 2 minutes, 2 minutes, 2 minutes, 2 minutes, we're starting to get our shoulders to open, our hips to open, and we can really undo some of the damage that comes from prolonged sitting, so that if you do end up taking that great golf trip, you had to travel overseas or you flew across the country, the last thing you want is to get off the plane and not be able to make your authentic swing because your body's not able to move in a proper way. So little things add up over time. Working these shoulders, working these hips, probably two of the most important things that you can do aside from having a great morning warm-up routine, which I've talked about in other videos. All right, everybody, I hope this has been very helpful. Remember, when you move better, you play better. I'll see you later.